We're doing. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on how to build a better budget. So as you can see, if you aren't building a budget for your clients, you should be. So we talk about how Lifecycle Insights can help you automate a total cost of technology ownership budget for the future. But the reality of it is, and Alex and I say this all of the time, whether you are doing it manually or through a platform, the important thing is that you're doing it. So though I see many of our fellow Lifecyclers on the call, so welcome again. Those of you that have not met us, I am Marnie Stockman, CEO of Lifecycle Insights, and with us is Alex Farling, visionary and co-founder of Lifecycle Insights. So we're really here to talk through all the bits and parts of a budget, and I'm going to pass it over to Alex to kind of introduce what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so we're going to spend a couple of minutes going over just why a budget matters. There are a couple of different reasons for that, and we'll get into a few, but it's just important for us to establish and to go into what you're missing out on if you're not really doing it. And then we'll go into the what, which is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, right? What belongs on a budget? And I think most of you will be surprised on my take on it. I think it's more inclusive than most folks are ready to step up to the plate for. And then we step into the how, which kind of talks as much about what we can do to make the what even possible when we look at all the things that really belong in a budget, as well as automate it, make it faster, and make it an easier process.
Perfect. Again, we're going to do this in 30 minutes. So we'll probably do.
That's a challenge for me to not talk that much.
We're just putting boundaries on ourselves. We know, right. We know ourselves well. So really we're thinking that we'll do 15, 20-ish minutes at the beginning, and then we'll walk through what this looks like for us. So again, put your questions in along the way if you have them. And we're going to talk first about the strategy of delivering a total technology budget not just for your partners, but for your own internal company too. I had some interesting conversations with prospects who are actually now partners of ours about this just this week. So Alex, you want to start there with the why?
Well, yeah, I'll step into that, but I really am interested in that conversation that the partners brought forward because it's a good one. But the strategy really turns into, it's a multi-layered strategy, just like everything else that we do. I almost see this as a much smaller version of the cybersecurity onion, right? There's a bunch of pieces we can peel apart. But the biggest problem that I had at my MSP was, we didn't have the tools in existence even to do true technology budgeting. So now that these tools exist, we owe it to our customers to not come knock on the door and go, hey, Windows 10 is going to die. I'm going to give you a little bit of advance notice, but at some point I'm just going to need 40 grand and we're going to have to swap out all your workstations, right? We did this for Windows XP. We did this for Windows 7. Knock, knock, surprise, I need money. And our customers are tired of it. And what we're finding in working with hundreds of MSP partners is that we actually get more yeses from customers to buy our other recommendations, products, services, advanced cybersecurity solutions, things like that, when we've been transparent about the fact that there are no more surprises, that we're laying out a budget that's long-term, that sees down the road and around the corners, and that starts to build out what you can expect for our customer. A lot of the reason that they weren't buying in the first place was because they didn't know when the next surprise was going to come. So when I came in and went, hey, I need 20 grand, they went, yeah, but next week you're going to come ask for 20 more grand. You're a never ending
opening the floodgates, right? Like if I say yes this time, he's going to think I say yes all the time. So I can't.
Yeah. And I even had a customer who said, I don't want to meet with you because I know you're just going to ask me for money, and I'm not the only MSP that's heard that. We hear that all the time. And so, we have to have the conversation that it's not about me asking you for money. It's not about my Maserati payment. I always like to joke around about that, but it's not about my Maserati payment. It's not that I'm buying a new boat. It's that technology is a never-ending replacement cycle. It's like buying a car. You never stop changing the oil. You never stop running down the mileage. And at some point, you're going to have to replace the car. You got to do tires and brakes along the way. Technology is the same thing. So there is a never-ending commitment, but it's our job to be transparent about that commitment with our customers, to let them know when the bad year is going to be, because every customer has a budget that kind of does some of this, right? The year where it spikes and goes up 20, 30, 50%, we should be talking about that early and often. 2 years in advance, 3 years in advance. Mr. Customer, how does your funding come in? Are you a nonprofit that needs to go put your hand out for a grant somewhere? Are you a municipality that needs to adjust taxes? or save some money from a previous budget? Are you a for-profit business who just has to suck it up and not put your kids through college, or whatever it boils down to, right? We want to plan for these things so that it doesn't end up being, I can't put my kids through college because I agreed to all this technology expense. But the last why, is one that I hadn't even thought about until we started this call today. And it's because if you're not giving your customer a budget, guess what? Somebody else will. Lifecycle Insights is running around talking to all of our partners going, hey, you know what? As part of your sales and prospecting methodology, go out to your customers and tell them, when you work with me, you'll get one of these every quarter, and it's got a budget in it. And we actually tell them, hey, flip to page 17. It's got a 5-year budget in it. I'm sure your existing guy gives you a budget. I just want you to see what mine looks like. Mine will be formatted like this. Does that make sense to you? Can you understand? Can you see how we could build a relationship worker? And the customers are going to go, my guy doesn't give me a budget. He doesn't tell me 2 weeks in advance when he wants money. And all of a sudden we've done this big wedge sell. So not only does your customer deserve it, not only does transparency say that we really should be doing this for our customers because we have more visibility than they do into all these other things. But at the end of the day, what it really boils down to is, if you're not, somebody else will.
And to your point, you spoke of a competitor doing it, but if even a competitor's not doing it, they're doing it internally. And when they're doing it internally, it's somebody that doesn't understand the risks associated to the pieces that you have on that budget. And so then suddenly you become a line item to someone else that can cross you out, say, we'll cut an expense here, there, or otherwise, versus when you're presenting the budget and giving the value add, not just for yourself, but the rest of the technology.
Chris Weiser's always throwing bombs in the industry. He's ever controversial, but he was spot on the day that he said, budgets don't get cut, expenses get cut. If you build the budget and deliver it to your customer, you're more likely to get your funding. And if you are just viewed as an expense to someone else who's writing the budget, or if a budget's not happening, you're just an expense and you won't get what you need. And he was spot on. He stood down in Austin on stage and said that in front of a group of 100 people one day. And I went, that right there, that matters. And he was spot on. And then we can step into the final one, which is, for your own company, right? We all have a certain number of mouths to feed on our payroll. You need to know how much work you have coming in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, so you can start worrying about staffing. So you can make sure, number one, that you have enough revenue coming in the door to feed people. Number two, that you have enough people to address the revenue you have coming in the door. The hardest thing that MSPs are struggling with right now is hiring talent. If I know a year from now I'm going to have a gangbusters year, I probably want to start looking to hire somebody now.
Ramp up to that.
Yeah, let's ramp up to that. Let's go out and get those people ahead of time.
That I had this week with a prospect who said, what I'm really interested in is a roadmap, not just for a single client, but internally, so that we can talk about resourcing for our projects, because both my project delivery, service delivery manager is, aching for this, and our CFO, for the reasons you just pointed out. So when he realized the whole project the whole roadmap of recommendations piece, he said, like, that's what I need internally to be a real champion, for our clients, as well as just for our own department.
I think FedEx is going to come bang on my door and make the dog bark.
That is,
perfect timing.
I will click the next slide so we can get to that conversation.
If I go muted, you'll know why.
Yeah, no worries.
So, as we start to get in and talk about budgets, there's a lot that goes into this conversation, right? We talk about the initial the initial MSP budget, right? Which is what I did when I had my MSP. Here's all the invoices that are coming from me in the next 12 months or 18 months or whatever. We've really revolutionized the conversation, or at least fired up the conversation around the total cost of ownership budget. And it's something that nobody in the space was talking about before, but we really have to get in front of our customers and have the conversation about a budget that includes not just Alex's Maserati payments or Alex's payroll, right? It's got to include a conversation about all of the expenses related to technology, so that our customer can have the bigger conversation, right? So that they can really be prepared to not only support their big expensive line of business application and get a new copier lease and still pay for all the PC renewals and servers and switches and junk that I want them to buy. We've got to get to a point where our customer can see all of that in one place. And we're really the only people in the building who are capable and prepared to put all that together in one place where the customer can see it. And I think that's one of the things that is missing from the way that a lot of MSPs handle this.
So let's talk about the what. Specifically, I think that's a pretty compelling why of why they're going to be delivering these budgets. I've got two types of budgets listed. You've kind of explained the value of them, but can you give some specifics around what we actually see people delivering to their partners and why each brings a different type of value to them?
I'm going to ask you to rephrase that because I'm not sure where you're going with that. And I've
Well, what
got
are the two types of
software.
budgets? What are the two types of budgets that folks are delivering in a business review or at the end of the year?
Today?
Yeah.
Well,
So
you're
in
throwing
the
me
sixth,
curveballs now.
no, the sixth quarter, and
Oh, right. 6 quarter. Oh,
I'm
so
like,
we're
what
doing
are
a,
the two
yeah.
budgets?
So we're doing a near-term tactical, right? And a
Yeah.
long-term strategic,
Yeah.
right? I was really scratching my head there for a minute.
No, I'm like, no,
Um,
like tactically.
I got too excited about the boxes that are sitting out on my front porch right now. So anyway, yeah. So we've got that near-term tactical budget, right? And it might be 6 quarters. It might be we've got partners who are delivering as much as low as 3 or 4 months, right? For that customer who wants to know, hey, I replaced this PC in Q2. And Sally in accounting gets a new machine and will stop complaining about hers being slow, right? Jim, the sales guy, gets a new iPad and his will be fast and up to speed and he'll be good to go. And the squeaky wheels will stop complaining, right? And those are typically what MSPs are doing already. That's kind of what they've already got because they don't have the visibility into the long term. Where the advancement comes and where the maturity comes, and you'll actually have to mature your customer along the way, is when you can build a 5-year budget and meet with your customer at the beginning of the year and say, here's your expenses for the next 2 quarters. Are we good? Because we're going to talk again in 2 more quarters, and then I'll ask you about the next 2. But if I just send all these invoices as they go, are we good? You'll know your customer is mature if they go, yeah, we've planned for this, we budgeted for this, life is good. You'll know they're not mature if they go, well, expand that list and tell me who's getting new PCs. We're still focused on who's getting new PCs. We're not strategic yet. We haven't gotten to that point. Strategic means we have adopted a life cycle refresh policy. We know that everybody gets a new PC every X number of years or X number of months. And we're just prepared to deal with it when it comes along. And when the squeaky wheel comes to us and says, my computer's slow, we go, we bought you the right computer the first time. You'll get another 6 or 8 or 12 months out of it and you'll be okay. It's really not that, life is okay. And so, these are the conversations that change as we move from that tactical kind of squashing tickets as they come in mentality to a let's build a real future plan that sets my customer up for success in the long term.
And you've kind of talked about the components of those 2 budgets, which we've outlined here, right?
Yeah.
Your point, the initial budget. As a matter of fact, before we had a budget, we had an asset list.
Asset list. Yeah, that was the budget.
Yeah, as replacement costs. Red. This is what we need to replace right now.
It includes replacements and warranty renewals, right? Hey, this thing fell out of warranty. Let's go buy a warranty. This thing's dead. Let's replace it. Moving on.
And to your point of like maturing the process, if you're not delivering anything, this is a place to start, right?
Start where we are.
Now, other folks that are on this call, right? We know well that you're at the other end of the spectrum and are adding, dotting I's and crossing T's. So let's talk about what some of those next steps are. We've moved from replacements to now we can pull contracts into the platform so that we can automate what do you love about the ability to add contracts? And there's really 2 levels, our own as the MSP contract and then third party.
And it's not like our customer doesn't know how much they spend with us, right? They sign the check every month. So we might as well pull our contract in and put it on the budget, right? Again, transparency, put everything where it's in one place to manage, establish a budget so that we no longer are an expense looked at to just get cut. And then let's start to add to that the other things that include total cost of ownership, right? What does it really cost to run technology? So we've got, what does it cost to pay the copier guy? What does it cost for the camera system? What do we spend on line of business applications or, any leasing or anything else to do with technology that maybe doesn't come direct to the MSP? And I like to see VoIP. I like to see internet circuits. I like to see all those ancillary services that you can go out to Telarus or Intelisys or Sandler Partners or any of those groups and maybe resell through to your partner or get a pass through or whatever, a commission for connecting your customers with. If they're using a CRM, get them on a CRM that you can get some money out of through a contact center. If they're using a voice over IP phone system, go get them on OIT VoIP and make sure that you're getting 15-20% on the back end of it. But by building that budget, by building that all-inclusive budget, they can see all of those expenses. And then we have the conversation about phone. We sit down and say, hey, it looks like your contract's about to end based on my records. Do you want to get over onto a system that'd be easier for me to help you support? Right. And then I get more money because I get 15-20% on the back end. The customer probably doesn't spend any more. And if they do, it's insignificant. And all of a sudden we have a more supportable customer who is making more money for me and spending the same amount of money. There's also opportunities to cut products and services. I can't tell you how many partners we've talked to who are like, oh yeah, when I realized they were using Monday.com to do project management, we went in and deployed Microsoft Planner, and now all of a sudden they don't have to spend $50 a user per month to have that other product. But then the really big final reason for this is we're not competing for the money they spend on their EHR or EMR software. We're not competing for the Salesforce money or the Sage financial software money. That's not money we could get anyway. But we are competing for that wallet share. And by wallet share, I mean every month or every quarter, my customer opens their wallet to pay their bills, and there's only so much money. None of my customers were the federal government. So they open their wallet, they've only got so much money. And if they have a renewal for a piece of core line of business software, that gets paid first, right? MSPs, you pay ConnectWise first. You can't afford for it to be turned off, right? And so they're going to pay Salesforce first. They're going to pay their finance software first. They're going to pay those line of business vendors first. I'm left to compete for what's left. If I know about those big expenses, maybe one of their vendors gives them a discount to pay it all up front at the beginning of the year. If I know January is a big $40,000 or $50,000 bill to another vendor, I'm going to move that server replacement somewhere else in the budget so that it can get taken care of when I'm not competing for wallet share. And that's why it's important to take that budget, even if you're looking at it from a big 5-year view. When I get to the near term, break it down into smaller sections so that I can get visibility into those kind of things. And if you're doing your budget all by yourself on a spreadsheet, that's really hard to do. If you have a tool that does the budgeting for you, a couple of clicks, and you can rearrange how you're looking at it, you can add and remove detail, you can get visibility into it. And as well as this, helping you, it really helps you make sure that when you go to your customer to talk about a project or a replacement, you're helping them by changing the conversation from, can you afford to do it today? Can we afford to even be partners on this? To, Mr. Customer, when is the better time to do this, right? Here's your budget. It's factual. We're looking 3 years in advance. It looks like there could be a debt snowball that accumulates here. Can we save money to get to that, to get past that point? Do we need to break it up? Do we need to do leasing? Do we need to do hardware as a service? We have a lot of tools at our disposal as MSPs. We just haven't been mature enough to get them out there and use them.
So you kind of spoke to the last piece of recommendations in breaking up the project, right? To be able to pull assets and push it to a quarter where the wallet's been refreshed and maybe there's some bandwidth in there. That's kind of a critical piece, and having insights into contract end dates that don't normally belong to you, I think is important. Another thing I think is interesting, this morning on Facebook, I was tagged in a post because somebody was asking, what should a company spend on IT? And that's a dangerous question to ask, because every company might have a line of business.
It depends.
Yeah, it depends is the actual answer. Yeah. It's dangerous to ask. I understood why they asked it that way. But when you think about the budget, the way you spoke of it, we're way beyond it being an IT device. We're talking about the way you do business. So right. It is part of your business. And so you're kind of, you're not looking at it as a siloed component that we can just decide to take a slice of. Business is done through technology these days. And so here's what that looks like. So it could be, where the numbers used to be 2 to 7% of the budget, it could be a much larger percent because of things like your line of business applications, your CRMs, your phone.
And the increased cost of cybersecurity, right? We're hearing cybersecurity costs being up, not just the tools themselves becoming more expensive. And I think MSPs are up against a 5 or 7% bump on average in their tooling costs this year. Labor costs are up, as are, the costs of, all the assets that they've got to buy, everything else that they've got to do. So not just are their costs going up, but there's going to be more cybersecurity tools needed. We've got to add all these layers as cybersecurity gets more and more scary and more concerning. So yeah, I would think that number is somewhere around double what it used to be. Even the small guys are going to spend 5%, 4%.
Yeah.
The little micro businesses.
is very different, right? There are a lot of components that are the same, but each business is unique to that vertical components as well. So the last bullet on that slide was, let's do this at scale. And the reality of it is, we talked about Raj on another call yesterday. Raj used to spend 12 hours manually doing each line item on his budgets. And now—
And I give him credit for that, because
Oh,
as somebody
yes.
who had no tool, he actually delivered a real budget that had value. He understood the value.
Yep.
My God, was that a labor of love or hate?
100%.
But yeah, he was willing to put in the time and do the hard work.
So we think the beauty of Lifecycle Insights is that you can repeat this customer over customer, especially if you have a consistent idea of, I want to build a 6-quarter budget and I want to build a 5-year budget. So for those of you that have not seen us before, I'm going to give a couple quick pieces. Some of you, this is old hat, and you certainly know where all of these button clicks are. But again, in 30 minutes, hopefully you're still getting some tips and tricks you can take literally to the bank. So the first piece is your asset list. So at the beginning, as we talked about, we came out years ago at IT Nation with an asset list with 2 things. If you have an end of life date and a default replacement cost, we're going to push it to the budget in the month where that comes due. So one thing, if you're new to us, that we really would like you to check out is find all the ones that are blue, because they're not pushing to a budget. That means the data is missing. We don't have an end of life date. If you look at that and say, that's okay, I'm good with that, feel free to keep calm and carry on. But if you need to go add end of life dates, that is critical for us to automate to a budget. The second piece Alex talked about was the contracts. So this is relatively new. So if you haven't chatted with us in the last 2 months, then this will be news to you, is that we can import tickets from Manage and Autotask and Synchro. And so if you click the import from Manage button, you then can add your agreements and additions, et cetera. It works the same. Our demo site's just set up for Manage. Or you can add a new manual one. So this is where Alex pointed out, this would be a line of business application, maybe a VoIP provider that is not something they're paying for through you, so that you get insights into things like their notice period, right? What is the end date of their contract? How many days notice do they have to give for that contract? And then would you like to be notified 30 days before that date so you can get ahead of them? Those are the types of things that give you information that make you strategic for yourself, and then also let you have the conversation with your partners.
I want to tell a horror story around that, just so everybody gets this. We had a customer who we referred to a vendor. We told them, hey, go work with this vendor. They'll help solve a problem you have. And the vendor did a really bad job. Okay. They signed a contract with that vendor. It was a 2-year contract. At the end of the 2 years, they were like, this vendor is just making me furious. I want out. Okay. They came to me and said, we got to get rid of this. Okay. Get it. I apologize for putting you in that place in the first place. We thought they'd do a better job. When we went back to the vendor and said, this customer to cancel their contract, they said their notice period was over a week ago. They were stuck in a new 2-year contract. And guess what happened? They fired me. As an MSP owner, I lost a customer because of a bad vendor who got in the way of that. So managing these end dates for any of your customers who have ever gotten stuck in an auto renew contract, managing these end dates is important. As an MSP, with the way contracts are in this industry, you might want to start managing your own contracts in here and know when your vendor contracts are due, right? We can show them to you in bright red. You can do your own internal quarterly business review or internal budget review, but manage those contract end dates, because there's just no excuse for an auto renewing contract slipping through the cracks other than we didn't do the work to set up and prepare for it and have visibility into it.
So I've got one more piece to add. That's the recommendation component. So here you can see we've created some recommendations, and I'll just drill into one we've created, really that links assets that we want to replace, right? So we're going to create a network infrastructure upgrade, and we've even tied it to assessments, which we're not going to get into here, as that's a whole nother 30-minute Thursday that we can talk about. But to be able to build a recommendation and say, in this time period, I'm going to replace these assets. And this is where you can move this around and revise it on the budget forecast, so that you can now project out the full detail view where I can drill in and see exactly which 3 workstations I'm replacing still by the end of this year. or more of the spreadsheet view. And I like to look at the spreadsheet view actually at the 6-year setting. So as I'm looking over the next few years, maybe this is a client that, pays $10,000 each year and then owes $20,000 more for 2 servers in 2 years, right? That would be a shocking new expense if you didn't present it in front of them.
Now we have partners that like to just do a 3-year view. I usually show a 5-year view. You just flipped to a 6-year view really fast, but can you show partners or show these folks exactly where that gets configured? So you can save this to any views that you want by doing this configuration. Yeah.
Click the gear, change reporting options. You can see here, I just opted for some assets, but I could add contracts, recommendations, etc. I can make the budget yearly, monthly, quarterly, up to 12 periods. So I could do the 12-month detail view. I could do 12 years out. At the end of that, we know that's kind of silly, but so I wouldn't recommend that one, but you could if you wanted to, because that's all automated from the platform. Now think about these settings, and you do have the ability to select a view and save that view. So if you're always going to do a 6-quarter detail budget and a 5-year budget, then by golly, save those 2 so you can replicate it client over client. But the last piece we really want to show you is that notion of setting up those 2 budgets to have them and how to cycle through it quickly. I can build a template. I'm going to grab one that has way more than 2 budgets, but I'll just show you the budget components. So this is Project Builder. Report Builder. It's Report Builder. Report Builder will let you grab any components. Today, we're just talking about the budget. So I'm going to look at these 2 components, our 5-year budget forecast and our 6-quarter budget forecast. I've already at the top chosen my rules. I've decided I'm going to include the assets, contracts, and subscriptions in my detail view, but in my 5-year budget forecast, I'm not going to include contracts and subscriptions. Maybe I am. Whatever your choice is, you set you kind of lock in the view of the report. And then as I change this report from creative designs to my next client, Get Well Medical Services, it rebuilds those exact 2 budgets. I can now download them to Word or put them in presentation view, and I can ship them off to my clients today.
And an exercise we did earlier this week with a group of partners was actually to take to rebuild the template, to build a shorter template. You can see the report contents on the left. That is a real long list of content. We kind of built a shorter template that was a quick business review designed to be emailed out at the end of the year and just give a little bit of content. So what we did was baked in that budget, but also a recommendation or 2 to say, hey, Mr. Customer, if you do have money left at the end of the year, this is where I think you ought to spend it. Like if you can get through that $38,000 that's left over in January to December, and you had another 10 grand you wanted to spend that had, before you pay taxes on it, we can go ahead and address that as, by doing this particular recommendation.
So
we did have
answer, the question. Yeah. So it was asked, which ticketing systems can you sync assets from, et cetera, IT Glue. So we sync assets from PSAs, so ConnectWise Manage, AutoTask, Halo Synchro, or IT Glue. So you have to have one of those primary integrations. I see you ask about ScalePad. We don't integrate with ScalePad because we actually do warranty lookups ourselves. So we do warranty lookups on Dell, Lenovo, HP, Microsoft Surface, Cisco, Meraki, and SmartNet. So we'll clean up your data for you, so we don't need to grab that anywhere else. We'll do that for you. So you might be able to drop that subscription if you're looking to get warranty lookup reports. You can see we've got kind of our warranty column here that I've highlighted. So hopefully that answers the question. And then Alex, I saw that you have, oh, okay, gotcha. You took care of the other one.
Yep.
So any other questions for us? We said we'd do that in 30 minutes. So if you agreed to take another call, feel free to jump. Our feelings won't be hurt. We thank you for staying.
Yeah.
But Alex, do you want to talk about, it is the end of the year. So we would like to say 2 more sentences that, knowing us, will take 10 sentences. But there's what you should do now and then what we can help you moving into 2022. So do you want to give the details on that?
Yeah, so I think, what you should do now, number 1, go grab a trial of Lifecycle Insights. Pick a couple of easy customers, a couple of your big customers. I get that it's December 2nd, and by the 15th or 17th, there will be no more talking to your customers until they get back from Christmas break. There is still time to get these reports out in front of your customers. The setup for this doesn't take too terribly long. If you put a few hours into this, you can get some quick and easy reports out to your customers. Take the free trial. We'll give you 5 customers at no cost. You can send those out and get a couple of your bigger and more important customers, over across the curb and start getting some insights in front of them. If you are interested in taking it to the next step, we have a couple of offerings for year end. We're going to have a coupon code that Marnie will go over in just a second, as well as, we offer free onboarding for all of our partners to help you get to where you need to be. And we also have a boot camp coming up in January that we'll give you some detail on if you'd like. If you want info on the boot camp, just go ahead and drop your name in or a question in the chat and we'll get it to you. But the boot camp is I'm starting from zero. I don't really know where to go. That will help you build this process into your MSP using Lifecycle Insights. Marnie's just posted a coupon. This is going to get you 50% off for 2 months. I'm sorry, $50 off 2 months. So if you do sign up and convert to a paying plan to take on more of your customers than just what's in the free trial, we'll give you $50 off those first 2 months. So that'll give you, a just over $100 price tag on a 25 customer plan. So we'll get you into this pretty cheap, pretty easy, and make sure that you have some success in the end of the year, getting information to your customers that otherwise might have taken too long to prepare. What did I miss? That was way more than 2 sentences.
No, that was good. So we have one. I'm just collecting some boot camp folks. So
Yep.
that's you know what? I actually have the boot camp link. So if anybody wants to stay on for a second, let me go grab it real fast so that might as well be efficient if we can be. But if anybody that jumps off, I will also email that out. But I can hunt that down real quick. Oh yes, I will put, so everybody that has joined the call or signed up, I will absolutely send all of these things in the email as well. So there will be both the coupon code, which I put in the chat, and there will be the sign up for boot camp.
I just want to say one last thing as you're kind of wrapping those last notes up.
Yeah.
I feel like I say it all the time. So, but hopefully there's somebody here who hasn't heard me say it yet. Don't believe that your customers don't have more money in the bank than they've ever had before. As hard as COVID was on some niche businesses, in general, there is a lot of evidence, and this is coming from reports from companies like JP Morgan Chase, that businesses have more money in the bank than they've ever had before. They did not spend all of their COVID money. So your customers are going to be having conversations with their accountant. Hey, I have $50,000 in the bank that I'd like to not pay taxes on. What should I do with it? Make sure that you get in front of them between now and the end of the year, or they will buy a boat, they will buy an iPad, they will buy 50 iPads, and they will not replace the Windows 7 machines that you had queued up, or the antiquated switches and firewalls or whatever. So now is the time to get in front of these customers and really have that bigger conversation with them about, what you should be doing with money if you had money left over at the end of the year. And I'm going to take Jason Thomas's question here. He's got a lawyer who's setting up a brand new law firm and kind of starting from zero. So he has a blank slate, and that's kind of a great place to be.
So I just put in the chat, like, that's a great place for you to come in.
And it's an awesome place to be, right? They're bringing in no technology debt with them whatsoever. And now you get to ask a lot of really cool questions. So, it's not exactly a cut and dry answer. So if you want to schedule some time to have a bigger conversation about it, we will. But what I would do with this is, number one, go ask my customer, do you want to buy all this equipment up front? Because there's a downside to this. If I buy,
all going to come due at the same time.
It's all going to come due at the same time, right? If everything has the same lifespan and I buy it all at once, it all comes due for replacement at once. So this customer's going to go, hey, I spent 20 grand on new equipment, a server and a firewall and a switch, and they're probably going cloud, so there's probably no server. But lawyers love their surfaces and their fancy equipment. They're going to buy really nice $2,000 machines, and it's all going to come due at once 4 or 5 years from now. So they can put themselves into kind of a bad perpetual cycle. This is the perfect time to talk about leasing or hardware as a service. A guy who's just starting up his business probably doesn't have a ton of cash to put out there, or at least he's conscious of the cash that he's got. So at this point, I'm going to say, do you want hardware as a service? Do you want me to just lease all of this to you as part of your agreement? And yeah, you're going to have a 3-year agreement. It's going to have a lock-in, and you're going to have a monthly payment on all your equipment and somebody pays interest. Yeah, that's a thing, but it'll keep you from 2 years from now or 3 years from now or 5 years from now having this $20,000 worth of equipment come due again. Inside of our tool, very easy to build the recommendations either way. Recommendations that will show this as a leasing opportunity or with a monthly payment, or as an opportunity with an upfront expense, and you can start to build all of that into the budget. We can absolutely build all of that today and present it to a new customer without any trouble.
So can you, because you kind of spoke to that, we had another question about really using basically, I said our assessment platform to cross-sell products. Can you speak to that with the recommendation? And I'm going to put my Calendly link in here so that if they want to
just really quickly, our assessments platform does standards alignment. So whether it's a best practice, a policy, a procedure, or a product that a customer ought to be consuming, we give you the ability to go out and ask questions and say, hey, does this customer have dark web monitoring in place? If they don't, then it's really easy for us to go out and say, hey, you're red in dark web monitoring. Nobody's been doing it. If you were breached, no one would know until it's too late. So we want to sell you a dark web monitoring product. Here is a recommendation to go ahead and solve for that problem. And by addressing it as risk and recommendation, it comes off less salesy. It comes off less sleazy. Mr. Customer, you have some risk. You've got a blind spot on the dark web. We don't know if your credentials have been stolen. We wouldn't know until it was too late. We have a solution that solves for that. Yes, there's some money in it. Here's the risk. Here's the reward. Is this something that you'd like to take on? If so, let's look at the budget and figure out when it fits to go ahead and add this into your budget. And that's the great conversation about the budget, because instead of me having to hard push and go, hey, will you buy this? Will you buy this? Sign here, sign here. Instead, I can have the conversation. Let's look at your budget and see if it fits. Let's see if there's enough risk there for you to warrant increasing your expenses a little bit so that you can have this conversation. And then we stop having the if conversation, and it becomes more of a when conversation. We get that transparency and visibility down the road. There's no more surprises, and they're more likely to take on those kind of solutions. So that's my dog and pony show for that. If you're looking for a VCIO platform for QBRs and budgeting, it's what we built this for. You'll see some expansion going into 2021 or 2022. We've got some fancy shiny new things coming that will take it well beyond just VCIO and take it to traditional account management and customer success and some of those other things. So there's way more coming. In 37 minutes or however long we've been on today, we only get to scratch the surface. But if you'd like to set up a demo, Marnie's put the links out there. Please do book a demo. Let's get you in the trial before the end of the year so that we can lock you into some 2021 pricing. Because just like every other one of your products and services, there will be a little bit of an increase coming into 2022. We're sorry, but we're building a lot of new stuff, and we got to pay all the fancy developers to build all the new stuff. So with great power comes great responsibility.
So we tell our current clients that they get grandfathered in, right? Like
absolutely.
Yeah. So no sweat there. You won't have a price increase.
You are grandfathered in. And last thing, there is no contract, no subscription, no commitment, no subscription. This is a 30-month or 30-day, month-to-month agreement. We are 100% believers that MSPs have way too many folks trying to cram them into long-term contracts. Come work with us. Let us earn our keep. And if we can't, you can walk away at any time. So with that, I think we can let folks go.
Perfect. Well, thanks for staying extra.
Yeah. Thanks for staying after class, guys.
I'll be sure to send all this in an email too.